All right, so today we're going to take a deep dive into something pretty fascinating, a situation that's been unfolding in India, and it all really kind of comes to a head on this Wednesday afternoon, April 9th, 2025.
Yeah, this is anytime you have a story that involves Mamata Banerjee,
Yeah.
it's going to be interesting, and she definitely did not disappoint.
No, she did not.
Mm.
So we've got reports, news articles, all sorts of stuff coming out of Kolkata, and it all centers around Mamata Banerjee and her very strong stance against a law that was recently passed at the national level, the Waqf Amendment Act, and it all kind of plays out against this backdrop of Kolkata, the sights, the sounds, the smells of the city. So Wednesday afternoon.
It's a really interesting juxtaposition. You have this bustling city life going on, and then you have this very serious political statement being made that has the potential to, cause some real ripples.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's break it down a little bit. For those who might not be familiar with Waqf properties, what are we talking about here?
Right. So Waqf is a concept in Islamic law. It essentially refers to properties that are dedicated for religious or charitable purposes. So think mosques, think educational institutions, think graveyards. Even shelters, things that are meant to serve the community and have a spiritual dimension to them.
Okay, so kind of like a community trust fund, but with a spiritual twist.
Exactly. And this Waqf Amendment Act, it's been making headlines because it proposes some pretty significant changes to how these Waqf properties are managed.
And it didn't exactly take its time getting through Parliament, did it?
No, not at all. I mean, it went through the Lok Sabha on April 3rd, the Rajya Sabha the next day, and then by Saturday it had the president's approval. So boom, just like that, it's a law.
So that's the national picture. But like we said, this deep dive is really about what happened in Kolkata on that Wednesday afternoon when Mamata Banerjee very publicly and very definitively rejected this act for West Bengal. It's a state-level decision.
Right, that's the key here. States in India have the power to decide whether or not to implement national laws. So while the act exists, it doesn't automatically apply everywhere.
In Mamata Banerjee being Mamata Banerjee, she makes it very clear where she stands, and she does it in the very Mamata way.
Oh yeah, I mean, she doesn't mince words.
So she's speaking at this event organized by the Jain community, and she uses this opportunity to directly address concerns about the Waqf Act, and she reassures them that in Bengal things are going to be different. Their properties, their rights are protected.
It's a really strategic move on her part, right? By speaking to this particular community, she's sending a very clear message of support and solidarity to minority groups.
And she doesn't just talk in generalities. She specifically references the violence that erupted in the Murshidabad district just the day before on April 8th. And she links that unrest to anxiety surrounding this bill.
That's a powerful connection to make. She's basically saying, look, this act has the potential to stir up trouble, and we've already seen evidence of that.
And she goes even further. She brings up the situation near the border with Bangladesh, pointing out the delicate nature of things there and questioning why this potentially divisive act had to be rushed through at this particular time.
Right, she's highlighting the context, the broader regional context, and arguing that the timing of this act is incredibly insensitive and potentially damaging.
It's interesting. She also makes this brief but very pointed reference to history, talking about the time before partition when Bengal, Bangladesh, Pakistan, India were more connected. And she uses that to emphasize this idea of unity.
It's a reminder of a shared past, a time when things weren't so divided, and it underscores her commitment to maintaining that unity within Bengal today.
Yeah, she's basically saying those who stayed after partition, I'm responsible for them. It's my job to protect them, not push them away. And you get the sense that she really sees this act as a threat to that harmony that she's trying to maintain.
Absolutely. And she goes even further. She directly addresses anyone who might be thinking about using the situation to incite unrest. She basically says, don't take the bait. Don't let yourselves be manipulated into creating chaos.
It's like she's switching into big sister mode,
Yeah.
right? Like, listen, I'm here. I'm looking out for you.
Yeah.
Don't let anyone else lead you astray. Trust me.
Exactly. And to really drive that point home, she recounts all these different religious sites. She's visited, Durga Pujoy, Kali Puja Jain temples, Buddhist shrines, gurudwaras, churches, Guru thus temples, even the Ajmer Sharif and the Brahma temple in Pushkar. She's painting a picture of herself as someone who embraces all faiths, who sees the common thread of humanity that runs through them.
Right. She's not just talking about unity. She's living it. She's demonstrating it through her actions.
Yeah.
And she's making it very clear that she will not tolerate any attempts to disrupt that unity.
So you have this very strong stance from Mamata Banerjee, deeply rooted in her commitment to protecting minority rights and maintaining harmony in West Bengal. But of course, this whole situation begs the question, why is this Waqf Amendment Act causing so much controversy in the first place?
Right. What's at the heart of this debate?
Well, it really boils down to two very different perspectives on the act. Supporters argue that it's necessary to modernize the administration of Waqf properties, improve transparency, accountability, prevent mismanagement and misuse of funds, basically safeguard these important community assets.
And on the surface, that sounds reasonable enough. So where's the pushback coming from?
Well, critics of the act argue that it gives the government too much power over whacked boards and properties. They fear it could lead to interference in the affairs of minority communities and potentially even the seizure of assets.
Ah, so it's about control and who ultimately has the authority over these very valuable properties.
Precisely. And in a country like India, where land disputes are already incredibly sensitive and often politically charged, any legislation that touches on property rights, particularly those of minority communities, is going to be viewed with a lot of suspicion.
And let's not forget, Mamata Banerjee is a very savvy politician. She knows how to play to her base, and a huge part of her support comes from minority communities. So
Yeah.
taking this strong stance against the act aligns perfectly with her political strategy.
Absolutely. It reinforces her image as a protector of minority rights, and it sends a clear signal to those voters that she is on their side.
And the recent violence in Murshidabad gives her even more ammunition to oppose the act, because she can now point to that and say, look, this is what happens. This is the kind of unrest that this act can create.
It gives her argument a sense of urgency and immediacy.
So we've got this very compelling story playing out in West Bengal, but it also raises some really interesting questions about the broader dynamics of power in India, because we're not just talking about a disagreement over a particular law, we're talking about a state essentially pushing back against the central government.
This goes to the heart of India's federal system. You have the central government in Delhi, which has the power to make laws for the entire country, but you also have individual states, each with their own elected governments and a certain degree of autonomy.
Right, and in this case, Mamata Banerjee is flexing that autonomy. She's making it clear that she's not going to blindly follow dictates from the central government, especially when she believes those dictates are harmful to her state and its people.
It's a reminder that India's federal system is complex. There's this constant negotiation of power between the center and the states, and sometimes those negotiations can get pretty heated.
And we're not just seeing this in West Bengal either, right? Carol has also expressed reservations about this Waqf Amendment Act, so this is something that has the potential to become a much bigger issue.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how other states react. If more of them start pushing back against this act, it could really test the limits of the central government's authority.
So as of April 9th, 2025, the situation is this West Bengal, under the leadership of Mamata Banerjee, has firmly rejected the Waqf Amendment Act. It's a bold move, a statement of defiance, and a clear indication that this issue is far from settled.
It's a reminder that in India, politics is often local, and personal leaders like Mamata Banerjee derive their power from their connection to the people and their willingness to stand up for what they believe in, even if it means challenging the authority of the central government.
And this whole situation really makes you think about the nature of federalism in India, how power is distributed, how those in power negotiate, and how ultimately decisions are made. It's a fascinating case study in the dynamics of a complex and ever-evolving democracy.
It's also a story that's still being written, right? We don't know what the ultimate outcome of this Waqf Act controversy will be or what its long-term impact will be on the relationship between the center and the states, but it's definitely a story worth watching closely.
Absolutely. And it's a story that highlights the importance of understanding not just the laws themselves, but the social, political, and historical context in which they are created and debated. Because as we've seen in this deep dive, sometimes it's those underlying currents that truly shape the course of events.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And that's a wrap on this deep dive into the Waqf Act controversy. Thanks for joining us.
It's been a pleasure.
And be sure to tune in next time for another fascinating exploration of the stories shaping our world.
We'll see you then.
Until then, keep thinking critically and stay engaged.
Absolutely. Take care, everyone.